Hey guys, what's up? It's Biscaboo Horror Reviews here with a very special review. Now, before I get into the actual review, I want to just say something real quick. I'm going to be going on vacation here soon. I'm going to be not active on my channel for the next couple of weeks. I just wanted to basically say that this review is just kind of a last-minute video that I decided to throw together because I watched a specific movie that I figured would be interesting to talk about. And just because, you know, if you follow my channel, you know I'm pretty good at uploading, you know, at least once or twice a week. Or at least once every other week. So, yeah, this is the first video in like nearly 2 weeks. Anyway, tonight's review is on a low-budget crime thriller exploitation film from 1988 from cult director Jim Van Bebber. This film is Deadbeat at Dawn. Now, for the longest time, I never understood the big hype behind Van Bebber as a director. I mean, I saw The Manson Family. I thought it was a pretty good movie, and it's definitely the best movie about the Manson murders probably ever made. That being said, it wasn't anything, like, to really write home about, necessarily. I really liked it, I appreciated it, but it's not something that I would put on, like, my top 10 movies based on actual murders list. Actually, it might make that list, maybe. I never really got the hype for him as a director. I think he's okay. After finishing Deadbeat at Dawn, I can kind of understand why he has this kind of cult following. This film, Deadbeat at Dawn, is about Goose, the leader of a gang called the Ravens. When he tries to leave the gang, members of the rival gang, the Spiders, come and murder his girlfriend, which causes him to essentially get revenge on the people who killed his girlfriend. The film has a fairly stylized opening credits, which was genuinely surprising considering I had heard a lot of things about this film being very serious and gritty. I didn't expect colorful lighting and you know, genuine style and almost atmosphere from something that I'd heard was very gritty, but alright. Before I knew it, the credits were over, and the film opens with Goose's girlfriend seeing a fortune teller and then being assaulted by a street thug before being quickly saved by a police officer. We then meet the main character, Goose, who is portrayed by director Jim Van Bebber. Goose is in a gang war currently with the rival gang, the Spiders, which results in a knife fight in the middle of a graveyard in broad daylight in Dayton, Ohio. And it's actually a pretty cool fight scene, in all honesty. Despite being done, again, in a public cemetery in broad daylight, it's pretty well choreographed and genuinely an intense little fight scene. And the film has that kind of low-budget punk rock street gang exploitation feel that I really dig, that you see in movies like The Warriors and The Tenement, I think it was The Tenement, Class of 1984, even Class of Nukem High. And then a guy's hand gets blown off and I stop taking notes. Now, like I said, this film was shot mostly in Dayton, Ohio, which is kind of cool to have a little exploitation film that's considered by a lot of people to be a classic of the exploitation genre, shot in your home state. So, the acting, in all honesty, in this film is far from perfect. There's a few good performances here and there. I think Van Bebber does a pretty good job portraying Goose as a far from perfect human being who definitely is not, you know, a very good person morally, but he doesn't deserve to have what happens to him happen to him. But overall, from a serious critical standpoint, the acting is okay at best all over. Same goes for the writing. The writing is okay. It's, you know, It's nothing really, Shakespearean necessarily, but it's good enough for what this film is. As far as character goes, like I said, Goose is definitely has a bit of depth to him. He's a semi-likable protagonist, despite being an asshole and not a very good person. And you want him to get revenge after what happens to him. His girlfriend, while definitely pretty flat, is completely innocent and wants to get him out of this gang, so her death is made all the more tragic when the villains come in. The villains are despicable, murderous, drug-dealing gang members, and they all pretty much deserve what is coming to them in the film. From a technical standpoint, as far as lighting, camera work, sound mix, all that jazz goes, it's a pretty well-made film considering that this movie had a production time of nearly 4 years, and it was shot on a very, very low budget. There are even some cool, colorful lighting scenes and scenes with some really aesthetically pleasing imagery, and I maybe that's intentional, maybe not. I can't really say for sure, but there are definitely some cool kind of aesthetic shots of the film. The pacing in the film is pretty good, honestly. The film gets rolling rather quickly, but then slows down for like a good 30 minutes or so. Not that this slow chunk of the film is necessarily boring, because I was completely glued to the screen and engaged the entire time. Yeah, it was definitely slow, there's dialogue, and, you learn stuff about the characters, but it's not boring, necessarily. And there are a few scenes of violence thrown into this kind of short, slow segment of the film, so I guess that makes it a bit better. Overall, the film is a very engaging, enjoyable, gritty, violent, and exploitive little exploitation picture from beginning to end. On the gore meter from 1 to 10, 1 being something like Nosferatu, and 10 being something like Peter Jackson's Brain Dead, Deadbeat at Dawn sits at like a 5 out of 10. This movie isn't as gory as I've heard. I've heard that this movie is a major gore fest and there's blood everywhere. There's some pretty graphic moments, mind you, especially in the final showdown scene, as well as this really cool shootout scene that happens in the movie. All very, very enjoyable moments in the film. But as far as a film that is under the kind of street gang, kind of punk genre of exploitation, this is definitely the use of violence in the film definitely makes it stand out, because you have a film like The Warriors, which is arguably one of the best of this genre, but it's a film that isn't really that violent or bloody. And then you have stuff like The Tenement, which is definitely a lot more gritty and serious, but still there's some pretty graphic violence there. And then you have something like this, which compared to like The Warriors, this movie is an absolute bloodbath. And I'm about to make another comparison to The Warriors. This film reminds me of The Warriors, and while the film is not as thoroughly fun and entertaining and enjoyable as The Warriors is, it's still a very good movie for what it is. The Warriors was kind of a slightly gritty, more over-the-top kind of just action film, while this film is both very gritty and pretty damn over-the-top at times, which can make for a good combination when you're trying to make a, crime thriller exploitation film. This film isn't for everybody, but if you're a fan of cult films, if you're a fan of exploitation films, I would definitely say this is very much worth looking into, worth checking out. And Arrow Video has actually announced a Blu-ray release of this film with a new 4K restoration, which I'm interested in seeing because the DVD that I watched that I got off Netflix was actually pretty decent looking, and I want to see if it can look even better, honestly. Overall, I think I would probably have to give this film like a 4.5, maybe 4 out of 5. It's sitting in that range somewhere. It's very enjoyable and gritty and, it's a good time to be had if you're a fan of exploitation films. If you are not a fan of low-budget filmmaking and exploitation films, this is not something I would say to start with. This isn't a starter film. Let me just put that out there. Anyway, guys, I'm starting to ramble now. This is Biscuit Boo Horror Reviews, signing off, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Peace.